Over the decades, Toho has graced the Godzilla franchise with a wide variety of kaiju, each one unique in its own sense. We've got the Titan pterosaur Rodan, the benevolent goddess Mothra, the god of destruction and terror, King Ghidorah, and the king of the monsters himself. The queen of the Meganulon came to be known as Megaguirus. She posed as a formidable foe for the Big G. In this marvelous video, let's dive headfirst into her origins and discuss the events that led to her creation. What are some of the lethal strengths she possesses? How would she fare in a fight against a kaiju like Kong? Let's find out.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Tracing the sinister origins of Megaguirus. Before we talk about the conception of Queen Megaguirus, it is crucial to shine a light on the creatures that made her. Meganulon first appeared in the 1956 Toho film, Rodan. They were portrayed as the nightmarish larvae of prehistoric arthropods that were akin to dragonflies. In the movie, the Meganulon were the primary food source for Rodan. In the film Rodan, it was revealed that the monstrous larvae are from the Cretaceous period. However, the ancient animal giant encyclopedia featured in Godzilla vs. Megaguirus told us that the Meganulon existed between 200 and 300 million years ago. They were revived by a sharp increase in tectonic activity and geothermal heat. Specifically, they were awakened by the unprecedented mining activities in Kitamatsu village. They reproduced in large numbers and resided in caves and coal mines. A fossil of the Meganulon was dug up in Germany, and its scientific name was termed Meganulon ori. Another bunch of fossils excavated in China were named Meganula luise. It is theorized that both Meganulon and Meganula are different stages of the same species. In the book Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, Super Complete Works, we are told that the Meganulon lay their eggs underwater, which in turn multiply into thousands and hundreds of thousands. The odd one out of these countless eggs would continue to grow instead of splitting into many more eggs. A select, overpowering Meganulon will grow massive in size, even before it reaches its final stage of maturity. Only one Meganulon out of 1,000 Meganulas is capable of laying eggs. It can be comparable to a beehive consisting of workers, drones, and the queen. The rest of the Meganulon only exist to bring sources of energy to their queen, Megaguirus. How did these creatures manage to slither into our world to wreak havoc everywhere? A wormhole made by the Dimension Tide was left open. The Dimension Tide is a satellite weapon that can fire black holes across space and time. A Meganula accidentally went through the machine and left an egg to hatch in Tokyo. The terrifying saga of Megaguirus, unveiling the reign of terror. During the Showa era, the movie Rodan showed the Meganulon to be monstrous dark brown larvae with fragmented bodies, crab-like pincers, and clawed feet. The larvae of the dragonfly-like arthropods had survived a mass extinction event and were buried underneath the ground. The beasts were awakened by the disturbances in the tectonic activity of Mount Aso, which led them to swarm the village of Kitamatsu and its neighboring coal mine. The Meganulon terrorized the miners and even killed off two of them, named Yoshizo and Goro. Yoshizo's corpse was recovered, while Goro's remains were lost. The authorities first believed it to be the actions of a human, so they sent two officers to investigate the mineshaft. They too met their untimely deaths. The mystery surrounding the Meganulon led the fearful miners to believe that Goro was indeed the killer and had gone into hiding. This conspiracy was debunked when a Meganulon wandered into the Kitamatsu village on land. The police force opened fire on the creature with their puny handguns. While they did no damage to the Meganulon, it still sought to escape to the safety of the underground. The Meganulon's thick shell proved to be excellent natural armor. It proceeded to kill two more officers and many unwitting locals. The intensity of the situation called for the aid of the Japanese self-defense forces. The protagonist, Shigeru, eventually found Goro's body deep in the crevices of the coal mine. Even the Japanese self-defense forces' heavy-duty machine guns proved useless against the monstrous arthropods. In a stroke of genius, Shigeru sent a minecart full of coal barreling towards one of the Meganulons, which broke through its armored hide and killed it. An abrupt earthquake caused the mine to fall into itself, trapping Shigeru with thousands of Meganulon in the cave. In the middle of their lair was an egg that hatched into an enormous baby, Rodan. He began to devour the Meganulon larva hungrily until he was strong enough to break through the sky and fly away. The hideous Meganulons made an appearance 44 years later in their own standalone film titled Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, which came out in 2000. It started out with a unit of the JSDF known as the G-Graspers, who were an anti-Godzilla fight force. They did a test run of the Dimension Tide, which could fire many black holes. A Meganula from the carbon Carboniferous period flew in through the satellite machine and dropped the Meganulon egg in Tokyo before going back to where it came from. A youth stumbled upon the egg and took it to his apartment first. The egg began to ooze sickeningly, so the boy flung himself into the sewers. The submerged egg had found its ideal habitat and began to multiply rapidly. Eventually, the hatched Meganulon overcrowded the sewers, which led to Shibuya being flooded. A boisterous, newly hatched Meganulon even killed a few people before evolving into its last stage of being a Meganula. Meanwhile, the city was underwater, and the G-Graspers team was in search of Godzilla. They came across the remains of the same Meganula, which had flown off. Seemingly blasted apart by Godzilla's atomic breath, thousands of Meganulons swarmed the side of a skyscraper while the city was thrown into a state of panic. The Meganulon then metamorphosed into the dragonfly-type Meganula and flew to the island of Kiganjima. While the G-Graspers prepared for the Dimension Tide to be fired at Godzilla on the same island, the Meganula had other plans. The monstrous insects blocked the Dimension Tide as they swarmed over the Big G and began to siphon off his energy with their stingers. Godzilla managed to get a few of them off using his atomic breath and tail whips. Even after the whole debacle, the Dimension Tide proved inadequate to stop the king of the monsters. The gang of Meganula that survived flew back to Shibuya to transfer the collected energy to the colossal Meganulon. The Meganula injected the giant Meganulon with Godzilla's energy, which inevitably killed them. The result of their sacrifice was a devastating abomination. The cocoon broke to reveal their queen, Megaguirus. She was described as a terrifying Godzilla-Meganula hybrid. The weakened Godzilla then surfaced in Tokyo Bay, where he was confronted by Megaguirus. She desired nothing else but to consume the rest of his energy. The two locked into a raging battle, and Megaguirus repeatedly aimed her stinger at the king of the monsters. Once his patience wore thin, her next attack was deflected by Godzilla as he bit her stinger off. He then aimed his atomic breath right at the Kaiju queen, who plummeted to the ground. As she fell, Godzilla fired the killing blow, and she exploded even before she landed. Thus began the terrifying creation and equally tragic end of Queen Megaguirus. Meganulon also made an appearance on the 2021 animated Netflix show titled Godzilla Singular Point. The Godzilla featured in the show was named Godzilla Ultima, and supposedly originated from an aquatic creature. We see numerous Meganulon living on Godzilla's Ultima skin. They fed off of the Kaiju as parasites. Some even nearly killed the protagonist when he landed on Godzilla Ultima's back. Confusingly, the show referred to the creatures as Kamanga, which are other praying mantis-like kaiju. The parasites look identical to Meganulon, as shown in previous films. Megaguirus' deadly arsenal, exploring the powers and abilities. Considering the fact that Megaguirus is the result of one Meganula being selected as the queen of the colony, it would mean that she possesses a unique set of abilities and powers. Did you know that after Megaguirus was injected with Godzilla's power, she could blast lethal fireballs that were potent enough to knock down the Big G himself? Being a boss form of the Meganula, she can fly at the speed of Mach 4, which means around 5,000 kilometers per hour or 3,000 miles per hour, to such an extent that she appeared to be a blur while in flight. Her flying capabilities extend to creating extremely high-frequency waves that can short-circuit nearby electrical paraphernalia. Her wings are on a whole other level. They have razor-sharp edges, which can cut through any man-made material. When Megaguirus emerged from her cocoon, she flew up into the sky, and the great flapping of her wings caused nearby buildings to collapse. The flapping of her wings is also unnaturally loud, which could deafen anyone who is too close by. Megaguirus also possesses deadly, razor-sharp claws. This is an attribute she carried over from her Meganulon stage. These pinchers come in handy when she wishes to dish out severe damage, like the tense moment when Megaguirus pushed Godzilla back and used her claw to dismantle an entire skyscraper and bring it down on his head. Shortly after this, Godzilla used his dorsal fins to slice her claw off. In other media, apart from the films, Megaguirus can summon swarms of Meganula if she requires their help. They fly in to aid their queen or help her fight. Lastly, and probably the most potent weapon in her arsenal, Megaguirus' stinger. Her tail is tipped with a deadly stinger, which she uses to consume Godzilla's energy. When they first faced off to fight, Megaguirus remained airborne, circling the king of the Kaijus as she relentlessly stung him. Each sting was a generous dose of his energy. When Godzilla had enough of her attacks, he grabbed her tail and slammed the stinger into the ground. He then launched himself at her, which immobilized her and also did irreparable damage. In a few games that feature Megaguirus, she is able to drain the energy of any foe that she fights. Talking about the physical capabilities of the lesser form Meganulons, they have not only pinchers, but also sharp formations near their mouths and extendable mandibles. The Meganulons we saw in Rodan had a hard exoskeleton, which made them highly resilient to traditional weaponry. They even shoot a black liquid in the face of their enemies as a way to disorient them. Meganulon are said to be amphibious, and they possess infrared vision, which allows them to hunt at night, similar to their queen Megaguirus. Meganula can fly at speeds comparable to Mach 2. Comparative might, where Megaguirus stands among MonsterVerse's legendary titans. The majority are of the opinion that Megaguirus is a highly underrated villain who appeared in a movie that failed to gain much traction. Megaguirus' conception was a fascinating journey that left us with a sinister monster that might potentially secure a place in the MonsterVerse. In a hypothetical scenario, if Megaguirus were to face off against a few of the most iconic kaiju in the MonsterVerse, what would the outcome be? We've already witnessed the battle between Megaguirus and Godzilla. The king of the monsters is known to have immeasurable strength and extreme durability. He was created from the human folly of mishandling nuclear weapons. That is the biggest bomb in his arsenal. Even though Megaguirus emerged as a product of Godzilla's energy, she wasn't as physically strong. Think about it. Godzilla's got hit by atomic breath, spiral heat rays, nuclear pulses, tail whips, and radiation streams. Most importantly, he has been portrayed as a sentient being with the capacity for strategic thinking. One of Megaguirus' biggest strengths was her speed, but she was still physically vulnerable. In her battle with Godzilla, he slowly but steadily broke her down, first targeting her claw, stinger, and eventually her entire being. Setting up a newly born Megaguirus against the king of the monsters was putting her up for failure. However, also pointing out a few of Godzilla's weak points is only fair. His sheer size can be a hindrance at times. It is trickier for him to move around or get around quicker. His environment also dramatically affects his ease in a fight. In his battle against Megaguirus, Godzilla was momentarily weakened when several Meganula overcrowded him to the point where they could latch onto him. His cumbersomeness is definitely a weakness. Now, let's talk about the King of the Apes. Similar to Godzilla, Kong has a strength advantage over Megaguirus. King Kong is considered to be one of the strongest titans to have ever existed. His physical strength seems incomparable to any foe he's encountered so far. He's capable of fighting beasts like the deadly Skullcrawlers and Siren Jaws. Not only is he highly durable, but he is also very agile. He can jump great heights and distances. In an imagined fight against Megaguirus, Kong could rip her apart with his bare hands. Also, once he tires of her flying, he will simply jump up and drag her down to earth. It's safe to say that Megaguirus doesn't compare to the level of the kaiju who run the show. She doesn't compare yet. The mind-blowing blowingence of Megaguirus and other forms of media. Apart from the films, Megaguirus has made various appearances in comics and books. In the comic series Godzilla Rulers of Earth, she appeared in a flashback sequence and was seen attacking Gorosaurus. She also showed up in the jungles of Brazil, where she ambushed Godzilla and Abura. In Godzilla Cataclysm, a colony of Meganula and their queen Megaguirus flew in to feed on a reviving Biollante and Mothra, but Godzilla came to the latter's rescue. In Godzilla Rage Across Time, Megaguirus made an appearance during the Age of the Black Plague. She feasted on a group of men sent by King Edward II. In Godzilla vs. the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Megaguirus was one of the many kaiju that were summoned by the Zillions in their conquest to take over Earth. In Godzilla Rivals vs. Mechagodzilla, the year is 2074, and the frequent monster attacks are being blamed on kaiju, like Megaguirus and King Ghidorah. In the book Godzilla, Monster Apocalypse, Megaguirus and Rodan feasted on the refugees running from Europe in the year 2036. The future of Megaguirus in the Godzilla universe. Many say that Megaguirus appeared in one of the most underwhelming Toho films. As a villain, she held so much potential and could have been capable of a lot more than what was shown. She would make one more appearance in future MonsterVerse films. Just as Mothra and Rodan have become an integral part of the new era of kaiju films, Megaguirus could definitely be added to the group if she returns. She is even stronger and more capable. Even if Megaguirus doesn't return as a Godzilla villain, it would make more sense for her to be a primary antagonist to Rodan. The two species have beef that dates back several decades, a sequel to the 1956 Rodan movie, if you will. Marvelous verdict. Here, we come to an end to the origins of the Megaguirus. She had a short run, but it was still a memorable one. Again, we can only hope to see her story perpetuated further in the MonsterVerse franchise. She could reach a stage of indestructible maturity and even higher speeds, which would make her a deadlier foe for our slower king of the monsters. Queen Megaguirus holds potential that deserves to be explored in depth.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.